One of the things that I find really challenging as a developer in this age of AI is just keeping up with how fast everything is moving. It feels like no matter how much time I spend online or how many newsletters I'm subscribed to, there are so many new tools being released every day and so many techniques that people are sharing about how to interact with these tools to get the most out of them. And no matter how much time I spend trying to keep up with these trends, it just feels like I'm always playing catch up or that I'm behind in some important way. But what I wanted to do in this video is share with you how I'm using one tool called Cursor. You probably have heard of it. In my day-to-day life, how it's helping me with my workflows, what I have found works really well, so that if you're new to Cursor or have maybe heard the hype and want to experiment with it, that you may find this helpful. Now, even with this tool, things are moving really fast and updates are being released constantly, and there are different ways of prompting that people are experimenting with that I think are really interesting, that I'm still learning myself. But here's how I'm using it currently, what I'm thinking about with it going forward. And yeah, let's get into the demo. I hope you find this helpful. All right, so I'm inside of the Cursor editor here, and one thing that I'm regularly tasked with or have to do, it seems like every week, is basically just take data from different sources, do something to that data, and then feed that new data, the result of whatever I'm doing, back into some other system via an API usually. So typically what I'll do is I'll go into Cursor, I'll bring in my different data sources like I have right here, and I'll create a new file. For this example, let's just call it data transformation.js. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command K here to open up this prompt window. And let's start breaking the task down step by step. So the first thing that I want to do is just kind of look at this data. All of this is just dummy data generated from ChatGPT. But what we'll say is we'll say I have 3 different CSV files inside of my data folder. Let's start by bringing these files into this file. I want to convert each CSV to JSON, and let's log the first item from each file to the console. So I found if you kind of, we have this overall task that we're working on where the idea is to do some sort of transformation with this data and then feed it somewhere else into some other system via an API. I find starting with like small, very well scoped tasks like this, if you go kind of bit by bit, the AI seems to do a really good job of it. So let's just accept the changes that we have here. Let's run data transformation.js, and it looks like we're getting an error. So cannot find module CSV parse. Okay, so let's initialize a node project here because I just kind of started with nothing. So we'll say npm init y to create our package.json file here. And then let's install, I think we can just install CSV parse. So let's just say npm install CSV parse. There we go. And let's try to run that one more time here. There we go. Okay, so there we go. We have the first transaction, the first support interaction, and the first client being logged to the console. Great. All right, so next let's take the output of this code right here. And what we'll do is, let's just say, for example, we could be working on a number of different, or could do a number of different things to this data. But let's say here is the output. I want to find all clients that have spent more than $200. Now, I haven't even looked at this data, so I don't know how many customers that is going to be. But let's say I want to find all clients that have spent more than $200. I want to produce a new array of objects that show all of these clients. Each object should have the following keys. Can't type today. We'll say the client ID, name, total amount spent, and total support interactions. And I think even just from a prompt like that, knowing what this AI already knows about our code here, it's going to create this client analytics. It's going to go through clients.map, and it's going to kind of go through each one of those different arrays from these files and do exactly what we asked it to do here. So let's accept this. And we're going to console.log high spending clients. Perfect. So let's just say node data transformation.js to run that again. And there we go. And so typically what I'll do, after any sort of, work like this to produce whatever result I want from the original data inputs, we'll say, okay, great. Now I'd like to take the result and loop through high-paying clients to send each client to an API. You can use Axios to do this. Please include a bearer token and just use dummy data for the URL and token for now. And so it's going to bring in Axios. It's going to create some placeholders for us, and then it's going to create this function to send clients to an API. And so I'm not actually going to, run this API call to somewhere because I don't have anywhere to send this stuff right now. But this saves me a ton of time, and it's also just kind of fun to go in here and work with this AI step by step to complete whatever data transformation task I need to complete. All right, so let's change this and do something else. Instead of making the actual API call to nowhere right now, let's just save all of our high-paying clients to a new JSON file. So let's just say, instead of making the API call, let's just save the high-paying clients to a new JSON file. Okay, high value clients.json sounds good. And let's run this. We'll say node data transformation.js. And there we have our high value clients. It looks like we've got, I don't know how many, maybe like 10 or something. All right, so let's keep going. We're going to look now at using the composer. So what I've found personally is for tasks like we were just doing, where I'm working inside of a single file and the task is very tightly scoped and we're just making small changes, that this prompt window like we were just working with works really well. But for tasks where you have maybe like a larger code base and you have different areas of the code that you want to touch, what I'm loving these days is using this composer. So to open that composer window on a Mac, I just pressed Command L. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a little front end for our high value clients here. So you can add in different pieces of your code to the context here. Like you can see that it's already looking at data transformation.js. What I've also found is that Cursor seems to do a pretty good job of just, even if you don't add in any context, it seems to kind of read your code base here and based off of what you're asking, read whatever files it thinks is necessary to complete that task. And it seems to do a pretty good job. So let's just take our high value clients that we have here. We'll say, I want to take all of the high value clients and show them inside of a web page. We'll need to build this just using HTML and CSS for now. Please go ahead and get started. And let's see what it does. So you can see that even without adding in any of that context for that file, It found high value clients itself. It's reading that file, and now it's generating some HTML. All right, so we've got our HTML ready. Now I'm just going to go look at what it did here. So if we open HTML, it's got all of our styles here. We'll get it to separate that out into a CSS file in a second. And you can see that it's just actually rendering the clients here. So I don't want it to do this. Let's go back and forth with cursor now, and we'll say, great start, but I'd like to separate our CSS into a new file, and I'd like to build a JavaScript file that renders the high value clients so that everything is not all in the HTML file. And so without accepting the changes that it's done here, you can kind of look at it and look at what it's done and go back and forth with it. And now it's going to go ahead and create that styles.css for us. Let's go ahead and accept that. And you can see these little kind of checkboxes come up beside the code that it's generating to show that you've accepted it. We've got our new script.js here to fetch client data. So we're going to go into data, high value clients. We're going to calculate the stats. I don't know what it's doing with these stats. I guess we'll find out shortly. And then we've got this initialize dashboard. Okay. Let's just go ahead and accept it right now. And then I think it's got our index.html that it's cleaned up significantly. So let's go ahead and accept that. We're bringing in that script that it created. That looks good. Let's just go ahead and preview this. And there we go. Pretty cool. And the last thing actually two things that I wanted to share with you guys. One of them is a tool called Repo Mix that I've recently discovered that I really like. And it's a super simple tool. What it does is it packages up your code base in a way that's kind of optimized for LLMs to read. So it shows all of the all of the directory structure and gives information about what's actually in each file so that you can take it, give it to something like O1 or whatever LLM you're using, and ask questions about the code base. And you can feed that entire context of your code base into that LLM. So I've found it super helpful for just kind of learning about ways to improve my code, looking at other code bases that I've never seen before to ask questions about and just kind of understand how everything fits together. And the way that it works right here is we're just going to run a simple command here. In my case, well, let's just run npx repo mix and I'll show you what it does. So if we just run this here, you can see that what it does is it outputs this repo mix output text that looks like this. And you can just copy, you can see it gives you the directory structure here, which is really nice. If you don't want to include certain parts of your code base, there are commands that you can include to prevent, something like this where data's showing if you don't want to feed that to an LLM. But what you can do here is you can just copy this entire thing, go over to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and ask questions and feed in this context so that the LLM can kind of understand what you're working with. The last thing I wanted to share is just an article that I found really helpful, written by Skylar Payne, I guess. So Skylar, thanks for writing this article, How to Stop Saying FU to Cursor. And what this article does, it goes through and hypothesizes, I guess, that the reason a lot of people struggle with cursor is not because the AI is not good, it's because of how we're communicating with cursor. And so what he does is he details his whole process for approaching problems with cursor and treating cursor, these LLMs, more like a programming tool that you work with, like another engineer on your team almost, rather than just saying, hey, this is broken, go fix this, right? So there's a huge process here that he details in terms of going back and forth, talking about the problem, scoping it out with the AI before you even start getting cursor to write any code for you. And while I haven't experimented with everything he's talking about here in terms of the different techniques that he's using. Just going through and reading this article was important for me because it helped me change the way that I think about what I'm actually doing inside of Cursor and how I work with these AI agents inside of the composer to solve whatever programming problem we're working on. Anyways, I hope you found those tips helpful. I'd be really curious if you have other tips that are working well for you inside of Cursor that I didn't cover inside of this video. Please share them in the comments. I'm always looking for ways to get better inside of Cursor. Really quick plug for the course I'm working on. If you're brand new to programming, if you want to learn how to code and how to use all of these AI tools that we're talking about to help write code for you, that's the course that I'm working on. It's not ready yet, but it's for complete beginners. So if you're brand new to programming, that's no problem. You'll do just fine. And I've got a waitlist set up where you can join, and I'm posting regular updates about when the course will be released. The link for that is in the description. And yeah, see you in the next video. Bye-bye.